Is the WNBA on the verge of losing its two most marketable stars in one shocking swoop? Tonight, we investigate a story shaking the foundation of women's basketball. Clark and Sophie Cunningham, two of the league's brightest names, are rumored to be weighing an exit from the WNBA. And the bombshell didn't come from gossip or speculation, it came straight from Indiana Fever head coach Stephanie White, whose comments have ignited panic across the league. Pointjeden. Stephanie White's shocking update. When Stephanie White spoke to the press, few expected anything beyond routine injury updates or standard team remarks. Instead, what fans got was an earthquake. White hinted that Clark's future in the WNBA might not be secure, and went a step further by suggesting Sophie Cunningham could also be rethinking her place in the league. Think about the magnitude of that for a moment. Clark, the rookie who single-handedly boosted ratings, ticket sales, and merchandise revenue, and Cunningham, one of the fiercest competitors and outspoken personalities in the league, both considering walking away. This isn't the kind of speculation the WNBA can afford to brush aside. White didn't name specifics, but the undertones were impossible to ignore. There's unrest inside the Fever, and it's tied to much larger issues across the league. To many observers, this wasn't just a slip of the tongue, it was a warning shot. White's tone carried urgency, almost as if she was signaling to the league's leadership, "Fix this now before it's too late." For fans, the reaction was instant disbelief. Social media exploded with questions. Could Clark really be done after just one season? Is Sophie Cunningham serious about stepping away? And if both left, would the WNBA lose the momentum it worked so hard to build over the past 2 years? This isn't just about two players, it's about the credibility of the entire league. Let's be brutally honest, Clark's day-to-day injury status doesn't add up, and fans are starting to see through the cracks. Officially, the Indiana Fever insist that Clark is recovering and will be evaluated regularly. But when you peel back the layers, the story looks murkier. Clark has missed practices, skipped film sessions, and hasn't given a clear timetable for her return. Even her teammates, when pressed, sound uncertain. For a player who has been the WNBA's biggest draw since the day she stepped on the court, that level of mystery feels not just unusual, it feels deliberate. Now, here's where the tension builds. Clark didn't just bring attention to the Fever. She became the face of the league overnight. Every game she plays sells out, TV ratings surge when she's on the court, and corporate sponsors flock to her name. That kind of influence makes her more than an athlete, she's a brand. And brands are supposed to be protected. Instead, Clark has been battered night after night with physical, almost reckless fouls that border on dangerous. Some possessions look less like basketball and more like pro wrestling, and yet the officiating crew often swallows the whistle. Fans are outraged, her teammates are concerned, and analysts are baffled that the league hasn't stepped in with stronger oversight. The truth is, Clark is caught in a vicious cycle. She's under constant physical assault on the court, she's carrying the weight of an entire league on her shoulders, and now her health is in limbo, and the injury questions only add fuel to the growing speculation. How much longer can she endure this? Will she choose to rest, recover, and return stronger? Or will she decide that the WNBA simply isn't worth the toll it's taking on her body and her future? For a player with international opportunities and global sponsorships, the answer may come sooner than the league expects. The stakes couldn't be higher. The question everyone is asking right now is simple. How much punishment can Clark take before she says enough is enough? Every time Clark steps on the court, the spotlight follows her, but so does the contact. Opposing defenders have made it their mission to bump her, shove her, and knock her off rhythm. What should be a showcase of her skill often turns into a slugfest that leaves fans cringing. Basketball is supposed to be tough, but what Clark is enduring goes far beyond tough defense. It looks like targeted physicality, and the league's silence is deafening. The disturbing part isn't just the hits themselves, it's the lack of protection. When a star player drives growth in any professional league, that player becomes a protected asset. In the NBA, superstars are shielded with officiating that prioritizes their safety. In international leagues, referees whistle anything resembling excessive contact when it involves marquee names. But in the WNBA, Clark takes elbows to the face, forearms to the chest, and body checks in transition, only to watch referees wave it off. Fans are noticing, teammates are noticing, and most importantly, herself is noticing. It's a dangerous precedent. If the league allows its most marketable player to be battered without consequence, what message does that send? To the fans, it says the league isn't serious about protecting its future. To the players, it signals that fairness is negotiable. And to Clark, it sends a chilling warning. Your health and your career are at risk, and we won't step in to help. Combine that with the mounting frustration over her injury situation, and you can understand why whispers of her walking away are getting louder. At its core, this isn't just about foul calls, it's about survival. Clark's body is the foundation of the league's current momentum, yet it's being chipped away one hard foul at a time. If something doesn't change, The WNBA could lose its biggest star, not to free agency or retirement, but to sheer exhaustion and disillusionment. And if Caitlin Clark decides she's had enough, the shockwaves will reach far beyond the court. If Caitlin Clark's silence has left fans guessing, Sophie Cunningham's voice has made the situation impossible to ignore. Cunningham has never been the type to sugarcoat her feelings, and this time, she's gone all in. Known as one half of the Blonde Bombers, Sophie has built her reputation on toughness, swagger, and a fearless approach both on and off the court. But lately, her words haven't just been about hyping herself up, they've been about exposing the cracks in the WNBA system. Cunningham has openly blasted officiating, accusing referees of missing obvious calls and failing to protect players in critical moments. She's recalled games where hard fouls went unpunished, where cheap shots were brushed aside, and where, in her own words, someone should have been thrown out. Her frustration has been amplified by her own history with the league: multiple fines for in-game altercations, harsh penalties for her outspoken criticism, and a general sense that she's been singled out for daring to speak truth to power. In a league desperate to project growth and unity, Sophie has become the thorn in leadership's side, the player who refuses to stay quiet when things don't add up. But here's where it gets even more explosive. Cunningham hasn't limited her defense to herself. She's spoken directly about Caitlin Clark's situation, calling it unsustainable. By aligning herself with Clark, Sophie isn't just standing up for a teammate, she's drawing a line in the sand. She's essentially telling the league, if you can't protect your brightest star, what does that say about the rest of us? Those words carry weight. Sophie may not have Clark's commercial appeal, but she has something equally valuable: respect in locker rooms across the league. When she speaks, players listen. And when she hints that walking away might be the only way to send a message, people take it seriously. Sophie's outspokenness now serves as both a warning and a rallying cry. For the WNBA, her criticism is a public relations nightmare. For players, it's validation of frustrations they've felt privately for years. And for fans, it's a reminder that this isn't just about a bad call here or there. It's about a league that risks alienating its own talent. If Sophie Cunningham has reached her breaking point, then the league is teetering on a breaking point of its own. When fans accuse a league of playing favorites, it's usually dismissed as sour grapes. But in the WNBA right now, the evidence of double standards in officiating is piling up, and it's impossible to ignore. Certain players get away with overly physical play, while others are slapped with whistles for the slightest reaction. The inconsistency is damaging trust not just between players and referees, but between the league and its audience. And nowhere is this divide more obvious than in how Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham have been treated compared to other stars. Take Sophie, for example. She's been fined multiple times for speaking out about officiating. She's had her wallet hit for what amounted to jokes, offhand comments, or frustration after a questionable game. Meanwhile, other players have publicly criticized referees, even accusing them of bias, and walked away without punishment. Fans notice these discrepancies. Players notice them too. It sends a message. Some voices are allowed to challenge authority, while others will be silenced. And when those silenced voices include one of the league's fiercest competitors, it becomes impossible to deny that something deeper is at play. Now, shift to Caitlin Clark. Every game, she's battered by physical defenders. Yet when she so much as reacts with a glare or a word, she's hit with technical fouls or labeled emotional. The narrative surrounding Clark isn't just unfair, it's damaging. She's being held to a different standard, punished for her visibility and popularity rather than protected because of it. What's worse, this double standard affects more than reputations. It directly impacts games, box scores, and ultimately careers. Clark's averages take a hit when she spends half her energy avoiding injury instead of executing plays. Sophie's reputation suffers when the league portrays her as reckless rather than outspoken. This perception of favoritism has real consequences. Fans are already questioning whether they're watching basketball or politics unfold on the hardwood. And for Clark and Cunningham, it creates an impossible environment. No matter how hard they compete, they're fighting not just opponents, but also the whistle. Burnout becomes inevitable when you're playing against the league itself. The WNBA has made tremendous strides in recent years, but credibility is fragile. If players believe officiating is inconsistent and fans believe the league protects some while exposing others, faith in the product erodes. And when the product in question is still fighting for mainstream respect, that erosion is deadly. This isn't just a matter of fixing bad calls. It's about restoring trust before stars like Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham decide the league simply isn't worth the fight. Inside the Indiana Fever locker room, the mood isn't what you'd expect from a team that should be riding high on newfound relevance. Instead of excitement, there's tension. Instead of unity, there are cracks beginning to show. And at the center of it all, Caitlin Clark's injury, uncertainty, and Sophie Cunningham's relentless battles with the league. What fans see on the court, the hustle, the grit, the highlight reels, doesn't tell the whole story of what's happening behind closed doors. And right now, what's happening behind those doors may be just as important as the games themselves. Clark's presence was supposed to stabilize the fever, not destabilize it. She came in as the savior, the star who could change everything, and in many ways, she has. Ticket sales have exploded, arenas have sold out, and suddenly Indiana, a team often overlooked, is the talk of women's basketball. But that fame comes with pressure, and when Clark is sidelined or battling through physical punishment, it creates uncertainty. Her teammates are left answering questions about her status they don't have answers to. Reporters swarm the locker room not to ask about game plans, but to ask when Clark is coming back. That constant scrutiny wears down morale and shifts the focus from collective effort to individual drama. Meanwhile, Sophie Cunningham brings her own storm. Her outspoken criticism of officiating has made her both a hero to fans and a lightning rod for controversy. While many players agree with her behind the scenes, not everyone is comfortable with the fallout. Every fine, every headline, every public spat adds pressure to a locker room already straining under the weight of expectations. Some players admire her fire. Others worry that her defiance is drawing too much unwanted attention. That dynamic can split a team, even if no one says it out loud. And then there's Stephanie White. As head coach, she's tasked with doing the impossible, managing egos, navigating media firestorms, keeping the front office satisfied, and still finding a way to win games. When two of your most influential players are battling external wars, one with injuries and the league's lack of protection, the other with officiating and fines, it complicates every decision. Team chemistry, rotations, even locker room conversations are filtered through the lens of tension. White may be holding things together for now, but the seams are clearly straining. Players talk, they trade stories, they compare officiating, question league politics, and whisper about the pressure cooker atmosphere. In today's WNBA, nothing stays secret for long, and if those conversations keep circling back to whether Clark and Cunningham even want to remain in the league, it's not just a fever problem, it's a league-wide alarm bell. Because if the locker room can't hold together under this weight, then the WNBA may soon find itself dealing with a collapse it never saw coming. Every superstar in sports eventually faces a crossroads. For Caitlin Clark, that moment has come much sooner than anyone imagined. Less than a full season into her professional career, she already finds herself staring at three very different futures, each with massive implications, not only for her, but for the WNBA as a whole. The first path is the one the league desperately hopes she takes, staying in the WNBA and fighting for change from within. Clark has already proven she has the power to transform the game. Her arrival sparked record-breaking ticket sales, boosted TV ratings, and drew national media attention in a way women's basketball hadn't seen in decades. If she commits to staying, she could leverage that influence to demand real reform, stronger officiating standards, improved player safety, and greater accountability from league leadership. The problem? Staying also means continuing to absorb physical punishment, endure questionable officiating, and carry the enormous burden of being the league's face. The question becomes, how long can she shoulder that load before it breaks her spirit or her body? The second path leads overseas. European and international leagues have long been an attractive option for WNBA players, offering shorter seasons, better salaries, and, by many accounts, more consistent officiating. In countries like Turkey, Italy, and Spain, star players are treated like royalty, and the basketball culture often places a higher emphasis on player protection. Clark could dominate internationally, play fewer games, earn more money, and extend her career in a healthier environment. The risk, of course, is that she'd be stepping away from the league she helped revive and leaving the WNBA scrambling to fill the void. The third path is the most radical, leaving basketball entirely. Some might dismiss it, but given Clark's unprecedented marketability, it's not far-fetched. She could transition into professional golf, where her competitive drive and sponsorships could follow her. She could step into broadcasting, where networks would line up to have her as an analyst or host, or she could simply cash in on the endorsements already knocking on her door, building an empire outside of sports altogether. Few athletes, male or female, have entered professional sports with as much crossover appeal as Caitlin Clark. That gives her the luxury of choice, a luxury many athletes never have. So, what does Caitlin Clark want more? To be a trailblazer in a league that has yet to protect her? To seek comfort and respect overseas? Or to pivot entirely and redefine what it means to be a women's sports icon? Each decision comes with monumental consequences, not just for her career, but for the future of women's basketball itself. The WNBA may think it has time, but Clark's crossroads are here now, and the clock is ticking. While Caitlin Clark's decision will make national headlines, Sophie Cunningham's future is no less critical. In many ways, Sophie has become the emotional heartbeat of this saga, a fearless competitor who refuses to stay silent, even when it costs her. But here's the fascinating twist. Her next move seems inextricably tied to Clark's, and that connection could either help save the WNBA's momentum or plunge it into chaos. Sophie's career has been defined by passion and grit. She's not just a player, she's a fighter. Fans love her edge, her teammates respect her leadership, and her opponents know she won't back down. Yet that same fire has also put her in the league's crosshairs. The repeated fines, the scrutiny from officials, and the constant tension with league leadership have made it clear that Sophie is operating on borrowed patience. She's made it no secret that she's fed up with double standards and tired of seeing players like Clark left unprotected. Now, put yourself in Sophie's shoes. If Caitlin Clark, the most marketable player in the league, the one who drives TV ratings and sponsorship dollars, is seriously considering leaving, what incentive does Sophie have to stay? If Clark can't get fair treatment, how could she expect things to improve for herself? The truth is, Sophie's outspoken nature makes her vulnerable. She risks more fines, more scrutiny, and more backlash the longer she plays under the current system. If Clark walks away, Sophie has every reason to follow. But here's the other side of the coin. Sophie could become the voice of reform if she stays. She has the courage to speak when others stay silent. And she has the credibility of someone who's endured the league's punishments firsthand. If she chooses to remain, especially if Clark leaves, Sophie could lead a movement of players demanding change from within. That would cement her place not just as a competitor, but as a reformer who reshaped the league's culture. Overseas opportunities also loom large for Sophie. International leagues offer better salaries and far fewer penalties for being outspoken. In Europe, she could thrive as both a star and a leader without the constant shadow of league fines. The choice becomes even more tempting if Clark also takes that path. The two could reunite abroad, building a legacy together while leaving the WNBA scrambling. Ultimately, Sophie Cunningham's future hinges on more than her own frustrations. It hinges on the domino effect of Caitlin Clark's decision. The WNBA can survive losing one of them barely, but if both decide the league isn't worth it, the fallout could set women's basketball back years. Sophie may not have Clark's spotlight, but her decision carries just as much weight. And right now, all signs suggest the two may be more connected than anyone realized. Let's not sugarcoat this. Caitlin Clark isn't just another rookie. She is the economic engine driving the WNBA's modern boom. Her impact has been nothing short of seismic. From the moment she declared for the draft, ticket sales exploded. The Indiana Fever went from an afterthought to the hottest ticket in sports. Road games turned into traveling sellouts. TV networks scrambled to pick up Fever broadcasts, and sponsors lined up, eager to tie their brands to Clark's rising star. Quite simply, the league has never seen anything like the Caitlin Clark effect. Consider this. WNBA attendance records stagnant for years, suddenly shattered once Clark entered the league. Merchandise sales skyrocketed, with Clark's jersey becoming one of the fastest selling in league history. Ratings for regular season games rivaled playoff numbers, and even casual sports fans began tuning in just to see her play. The financial ripple was felt across every corner of the league, from concession stands to broadcast deals. Clark's presence injected credibility, relevance, and cultural buzz the WNBA had been chasing for decades. Now imagine, even for a moment, that Clark walks away. The consequences would be devastating. Ticket demand would plummet overnight. National TV partners, who have already invested heavily in marketing Clark as the league's centerpiece, would lose leverage in negotiations. Merchandise sales would stall. Sponsorships, many of which were signed on the back of Clark's global appeal, would suddenly be at risk. In short, the momentum the WNBA has painstakingly built could unravel in an instant. And let's not forget the psychological impact. Fans who have flocked to arenas for the Caitlin Clark experience wouldn't just stop buying tickets, they might stop believing in the league's ability to protect its own stars. Future prospects, watching from college, could begin questioning whether the WNBA is worth the sacrifice when they see its most celebrated rookie walk away so soon. And if Sophie Cunningham follows Clark out the door, the blow compounds, turning what might have been a manageable setback into a full-blown credibility crisis. The reality is stark. Clark has become the WNBA's most valuable asset, not just on the court, but off it. She isn't just a player, she's the brand, the billboard, the revenue stream, the storyline. Losing her wouldn't just hurt, it could reverse years of progress. The league is standing on a precipice, and Clark's next move may determine whether women's basketball surges into a golden era or stumbles back into obscurity. The WNBA has never been under more pressure than it is right now. Stephanie White's candid remarks about Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham weren't just idle chatter, they were a flare fired into the sky, a warning to league officials that the storm is no longer brewing, it has arrived. And make no mistake, this is about far more than two players. This is about the direction, the credibility, and ultimately, the survival of a league that has finally clawed its way into mainstream conversation. Here's the hard truth. The WNBA has spent years asking for the spotlight. Caitlin Clark delivered it on a silver platter. But with that spotlight comes responsibility, and so far the league has stumbled badly in protecting its brightest star and managing its most outspoken voices. The officiating inconsistencies, the uneven discipline, the lack of transparency, it's all combining into a toxic mix that threatens to undo the very progress Clark and Cunningham helped create. If the league can't evolve, it risks alienating not only its current stars, but also the next generation watching closely from college gyms and youth leagues. Behind the scenes, sponsors and media partners are watching this situation like hawks. They've poured money into the WNBA under the belief that Clark's presence signals a new era of growth. If she leaves, those same sponsors will demand answers, or worse, pull back their investments. Television partners, already stretching to give the league unprecedented airtime, won't tolerate losing the ratings magnet they've banked on. And players across the league, many of whom share Clark and Cunningham's frustrations, may start weighing their own futures. The domino effect could be catastrophic. But there's another side to this, crossroads a chance for redemption. If the WNBA acts decisively, if it prioritizes player protection, enforces officiating standards fairly, and embraces reform, it can turn this crisis into a turning point. Clark and Cunningham could become not the faces of discontent, but the catalysts for change. The league could emerge stronger, more respected, and better equipped for the global stage. That path, however, requires urgency. It requires leadership willing to admit mistakes and make bold moves. And most of all, it requires listening to the players who are risking their bodies and reputations every night on the court. So here we are. Clark and Sophie Cunningham, two of the league's brightest stars, stand at the edge of a decision that could reshape women's basketball forever. The WNBA stands right there with them, teetering between progress and collapse. The question now is simple but profound. Will the league evolve to meet the moment, or will it let its golden era slip away before it ever truly begins?